Morning and welcome to the Lancaster Criminal Justice Commission meeting on August 10th, 2011. Call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brown, Fuller,
Present.
Gapel,
Present.
Greer,
Present.
Harris, Chairman Vieira.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Hey, Mr. Fuller, would you please lead us in allegiance?
I'd be happy to. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome. We're going to start this morning off with a presentation with Diane Grooms on the Family Justice Center. Welcome, Ms. Grooms.
Hello, everyone. I wear many hats in the community, but every time somebody needs to raise money, they always call me. So Virginia Arcos, who has been very interested in establishing a family justice center for our community, brought me to a conference with the National Family Justice Center Alliance last fall, and I was on fire with the opportunity for having a family justice center in our community. So I put on my fundraising hat, and we right now have the opportunity to receive $25,000 in strategic planning monies and the support of Blue Shield, the California Family Justice Initiative, and the National Justice Center Alliance. There will be a site visit in our community next Friday from 9 to 3. What I'm looking for are people who would like to be at least talked to by our visitors. Our visitors will be the director of a family justice center from Idaho and a retired police chief from Fresno. And basically it's our money to lose. So this will get us on the road to at least 3 other grant possibilities. Valley Oasis has agreed to be the lead agency in putting this plan together because we feel it is the next opportunity to reduce domestic and social violence in our community. I have visited 2 different family justice centers, and really what it's taking is different services we're already providing in our community and bringing them under one roof. It's a co-location, so the cost is minimal because people already are employed. We're just bringing them under one roof. When the San Diego city did a safety audit of their community, they found that someone who wanted to remove themselves from a violent home had to go to 32 different places. Our idea with a family justice center is to make that process smoother, to treat a family member as a client, not as a victim, because only about 10 to 15% of people who have been abused are going to go to a shelter. So Valley Oasis would like to provide another opportunity for our community and help you reduce the homicide rate in the domestic violence sector. We think that this is the next best step for our community. So thank you.
Just one quick question. Who are they looking to speak with, or is there certain agencies or organizations?
I think they would like to make sure that they talk with the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office and make sure that they are on board. We've had a group of nonprofits working on this for a couple of years, and we've had a couple of community meetings, but everyone has said until we get some money, we really don't want to step up. Well, now that door has cracked open, so I don't want to lose the opportunity.
Got a question. So the Family Justice Center is for people who want to remove themselves from violent circumstances? Is that
Yes.
the idea?
This could be elder abuse, child abuse, domestic violence, rape, sexual assault. All of these have some legal need, and there are a lot of organizations that can provide free legal services, but they don't have a place to do so, don't want to do it in their offices. We also have a place then to bring DCFS in, and really it's taking people who are already working in our community and co-locating them under one roof for the convenience of the family and the safety of the family.
Sounds like a great program.
Yeah, well, I'm gung-ho on it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just want to make a quick announcement with regards to the speaker cards. Again, as a reminder, all speaker cards must be filled out and submitted prior to the agenda item being called. This also applies if you wish to speak on non-agenda items at the end of the meeting as well. So again, if there is an item you want to speak on, the cards are in the back. Please fill those out and bring them up. Thank you, and we'll move on from there. Consent calendar, approval of the minutes. Commissioners, did you get a chance to look at those? Questions, discussion,
No questions here.
motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of the July 13th Criminal Justice Commission meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. Call for the question. Thank you very much. We'll move on to commission staff presentations, updates, reports, monthly crime stats. Mr. Cobalt.
Thank you, Chairman Vieira. Commissioners, before we get started with the report, I just want to make the Commission and the community aware of some things we've added to the public safety site of the city webpage. One of the things that we now have on the city webpage is are the maps and other information that we include at the Criminal Justice Commission and that we prepare for the community as well. If you start at the main city webpage, www.lancasterca.org, and under Departments and Services, go down to Public Safety. If you click on that, it'll take you to our main public safety webpage. On the left-hand frame, there is now a location for crime maps and information. If you click on that, it'll take you to a web page that has the crimemapping.com page on it. In addition to that, there's also a special link to take you directly to Lancaster for crimemapping.com. Other information on there are the weekly and monthly maps with preliminary crime data. And that's where we put citywide crime maps by week, our patrol area crime maps by week, repeat call report maps, or reports and maps, and monthly crime forecast maps. In addition to that, we also now put the monthly Criminal Justice Commission reports that I give on the web as well. So that's the good news. The bad news is we probably won't be printing the maps for the commissioners anymore. I'll try to get this up the night before the commission meeting for your review, and if there's something that you want to pull out of it for the commission meeting, or if the public wants to pull out of it, they can do that the evening before. If you click on that, I'll end up sorting these by year, and this is where the information is for today's report to you, and it will be on this page in subsequent months as well.
Wow.
Okay, this measurement period looks at the time period between July 10th and August 6th. Now, the last report that we gave to you comprised 6 weeks from commission meeting to commission meeting. This one has 4 weeks in it, from commission meeting to commission meeting. Essentially, what we see is our total Part 1 crimes spiked up just a little bit in week 30, as you can see, also in week 28. And then we kind of started trending back down last week in week 31. I don't know that we know the exact cause of that spike. However, it is forecastable. If you remember the Crime Commission last August, we talked about one of the things that had not really a level of significance, but it was an indicator when we put the forecast software together. The time around the Antelope Valley Fair tends to spike up for us, and we should see a reduction shortly after the Antelope Valley Fair. So that's kind of what we're counting on right now. But this is consistent with what we've seen in past years, and it seems to be right around this time of year we get this short spike up, and then it tends to go back down again. We also have the information on here for review with regard to violent crime arrests, property crime arrests and total arrests. The arrests for week 31 are incomplete at this time in terms of being entered into the system, so we're a little bit off on that, but the other weeks are fairly complete. And then we see the numbers of unique report numbers at the bottom. And you can see that the number of unique report numbers are trending up just a little bit, particularly by the time we get to week 31. We had 517 unique report numbers geocoded to the city of Lancaster. So as we look at this, we can see in the July Criminal Justice Commission meeting, we had a weekly average of 60.5 Part 1 crimes and a weekly median of 62. We jumped up a little bit in August, again with that uptick that is fairly predictable, with our weekly average to 73 and our weekly median of 75. Our most active reporting districts for Part 1 crimes during this measurement period were 1135, 1137, 1126, and 1132 and 21. Taking a look at those reporting areas to see what's going on inside of them. (1135) is highlighted by the light light blue box there. You can see a lot of the density, as we discussed last month as well. It's in around the Avenue J area, particularly between Challenger Way and 20th Street East. Again, this is a recurring pattern that we see pretty much month to month. This line that goes along J and within a few blocks of J. In taking a look at 1137, which is directly below 1135, again, the area highlighted in the light blue there, you can see, again, the highest density is along that area and a few blocks off of Avenue J between Challenger Way and 20th Street East. (1126) is highlighted here by the light blue box, and you can see we don't have the deep red area that we had with the 1135 and 1137, but we can see a lot of activity around the apartment complexes that are either within or immediately adjacent to. These are the apartments over here off Gadsden Way, and you can see the level of activity that's over there. In addition to that, that also oftentimes bleeds over to the parking areas and the other commercial areas that are at 10th and K. And we also see a little bit of activity that spikes things up here along Avenue K, just a little bit west of the freeway. (1132) again outlined in the blue up here. You can see that we have, again, a little bit of effect from the Challenger Way and Avenue J area. In addition to that, when we come over here, you can also see a little bit of activity along or between Division and Sierra Highway between I and J. And finally, 1121. 1121 doesn't have quite the density. If we had to look for density in it, we'd probably look along 10th Street West, from basically H down to I, and a few blocks either side of it. Again, much of the activity is centered around some of the rental housing that's in that particular area. As we look at residential burglary and the most active reporting districts, again, we see 1121, 1135, and 1137 leading the way in those areas, followed by 1127 and 1131. Larcenies involving vehicles. Now, one of the things that we look at in this reporting period, if you remember at the beginning of the report, I said we're looking at 4 weeks this period as opposed to the 6 weeks last period. We had roughly about the same amount of events in 4 weeks during this reporting period that we had in 6 weeks last reporting period. So it's important to keep that in context as we look at it. When we look at larcenies involving vehicles during this reporting period, Honda's led the way with 8, followed by Ford, Chevrolet, Pontiac, and a couple of unknown vehicles where it just wasn't listed in the report. And then other vehicle makes comprise the rest singly. This number continues to rise, and that is the numbers of vehicles left unlocked, or where somebody says, well, you know, I locked the vehicle, but there's no signs of forced entry, and nobody has any idea of how anybody got into the vehicle. One of the other areas that we saw a little bit of an uptick this time was where property was taken from the exterior of the vehicle. Now, in a couple of cases, this really, you can't really do much with this because these were wheels and tires taken off cars, so they skew the numbers a little bit. But many of these cases were cases where tools and equipment was taken out of the back of pickup trucks or off of trailers. We saw quite an uptick in gas theft from containers stored on trailers. In addition to that, we also saw quite an uptick in people losing tools and other materials out of the back of pickup trucks. Again, it's when they're left unattended and you have all of this stuff in back, and frequently these were occurred overnight. Very few of these happened at actual job sites, but it's when people park the trucks either on the street or in their driveways that they're getting ripped off. And again, residential driveways led the largest area of larcenies, followed by public parking lots, residential streets, apartment lots, and private parking lots. So again, the one area that we can probably control the best from a citizen's perspective is that driveway out in front of our house. And if we just keep our doors locked, I mean, if we go back to this previous screen, you can see we had one incident of a window shattered there. We had one incident of a window pried down. We had one incident of a punched lock, and the rest of those 36 were basically unknown or vehicles left unlocked, or it was taken from the exterior of the vehicle. Start taking a look at our trends by crime category. Rape is the highest category of crimes that appear on here this time, and that's trending up just slightly. Again, that's because it's a low-frequency crime, and if you move from 1 to 2, that makes it look like it's really trending up a lot, even though you've just had a frequency shift of just 1 or 2. Also trending up slightly is assault, but you can see over here in the last 4 to 5 weeks where assault's at. So this is not really disturbing. What we need to do is just continue what's going on over here with assaults, and this trend line will begin to come back down. And again, our baseline for assaults is up here at a little bit over 16, and you can see we've been down around, for the last several weeks, down around the 6 level. So that's a good sign for us. Residential burglary is trending up as well, but again, a couple of things that were driving that residential burglary were some of these peaks that were occurring. We're right now running an average, give or take, in the 20, either a few lower than 20 or a few above 20. And so it'd be nice to bring that back down again, but we're still well below the baseline of about 25 per week. larceny, again, these vehicle larcenies are the largest share of the larcenies that we have. And again, we can see that it's under our control as citizens to be able to do something about bringing this number down simply by locking our vehicles and locking our garages. A few of the burglaries that we had this week, probably more so than I've seen in the past, involve people going into detached garages. You have to close your garage door when you're not tending to your garage as well. It just makes good common sense. Grand theft auto. We're still way below the baseline on that, but you can see the real erratic pattern there. And this is typical for Lancaster. And we still have not been able to explain why it happens like that, but it's pretty typical for us. We'll be up one week and down the next week. Again, though, we're still well below the baseline of about 13.88 per week. Arson's trending up a little bit. One of the things that drove the arson crime this week was a stolen auto that was recovered that was a burnout in the desert and things like that. The station has been putting forth some significant effort in regards to the robbery issue in Lancaster, and you can see some of the good news right here. Where our trend overall is trending downward. We did have a slight spike within the last week or so, but overall we've been having a pretty good response with regard to bringing down the robbery rate as well. This is the map of the Part 1 crimes as they lay out across the city, and you have a copy of that map. This is our spatial trend analysis, and essentially what this shows is in the red area, when we compare this reporting period to the last reporting period that we reported to you, the areas where crime actually went up a little bit, and the green areas are where it went down. And then we have our forecast for the community, and of course, virtually all of the areas that we talked about, with the exception of 1127 over on the west side of town, is included in the red area again for the forecast, so we know that's coming. One of the things that I've spoken to the Commission about in previous meetings is the number of repeat calls for service that we're having. And one of the things that I wanted to point out to the Commission is calls for service are when somebody picks up the telephone, calls the Sheriff's Department, and we have to send resources out to that call for service. When an address continually generates a lot of calls for service, it disproportionately affects community resources and the way that we fund the Sheriff's Department. One of the things that I wanted to share with you right here is this goes back to the first week of 2011 and takes it up through last week. You can see the upward tick of calls for service. Now, these calls for service, we're using the formula that we have worked with the Sheriff's Department on to weed out self-initiated activity and everything else, and follow-up calls and those kinds of things. These are all original calls that are geocoded to the City of Lancaster map. And we can begin to see when we take a look at this that the calls for service for the City of Lancaster, when we started out at the beginning of the year, we were right at about 600 calls per service per week, give or take. And we're now up into just about the 900 range. So we've increased by about 300 calls for service per week as we take a look at this, and that's what makes the locations that end up driving our repeat calls for service all that much more important. This number that we're looking at right here is 291. The one that I put together for last week was about 190 for the previous 4 weeks. So we can see that we're starting to get into a rate of increase here that will not be healthy for the city. Quite honestly, if I have to be concerned about something right now, I'm more concerned about this than I am the actual crime rate, because the crime rate is predictable, and we have it right now at a level of where it's fairly well under control. But the next thing that we have to begin to look at is the resource demand on the part of the city and the sheriff's department with regard to calls for service, because that's a healthy increase in calls for service. And that's about all I have right now. I'd open the floor for questions.
Just a comment, Jim, and, as I look at that third one up there, Courts Hill High School, and want to, wear my other hat now, and that we're looking at the integrity of the security system that we do have within the schools to see specifically what is occurring to address that.
It's not only Quartz Hill, but if you take a look on here as well, we have the number 2 location for this reporting period, Gifford C. Cole Middle School, which ran 43 calls for service. They didn't have classes during this time. This is almost all alarms. And there's one other school on here too. I'm missing it right now. Tierra Bonita Elementary School with 13. I mean, these are all, and the thing about it is these are not calls that we send just one deputy on. These are calls that we send multiple deputies out on because, a colleague of mine in 1983 didn't wait for his backup on a school alarm call, and he was killed in the line of duty as a result of it. So generally, they're not good alarms, but every once in a while they do tend to be good alarms. So we always have to have the sheriff's department responding as if they are a good alarm and following proper officer safety practices. So yeah, it's that and several of the mobile home parks and other endeavors.
Jim, when you say these are not good alarms, I guess that means they're false alarms, or?
There's not a burglary report to go along with them.
Okay, so what's happening? Why are the alarms going off?
Well, I don't know.
I can speak to some of that. In some of the cases at certain schools, it could be as little as the wind blowing a door and setting off that alarm. It could be the fact that it was not set properly, or somebody came in over the weekend and didn't reset it. So there's a lot of things that may occur on a school site that are in-house, or it could be the system itself through the company that you're working with has some shorts or something that's not quite working appropriately within that system as well. So those are the items that we're addressing within our schools.
Well, when you get 43 alarms like it has at the Cole Middle School, is there something that is done with that school to address what's happening, to find out what the issues are and to correct them so that they're not recurring?
There's no, the only thing that can kick in at that point is the city ordinance for alarms, and the city ordinance obviously kicks in as to whether or not there's follow through on it. That's outside of my area.
That's the punitive aspect in terms of finding them for multiple alarms, but in terms of helping them find the problem, there's nothing that happens in that respect.
No. Well, one of the things that we're trying to do right now is we're trying to figure out. We've only recently started to track this, and we've begun to identify those places, and there are places where we can shore this up just a little bit. And the next thing will be, or the next issue will be, to figure out what we need to do to try to get these numbers down just a little bit, or at least work with the community to do that.
Well, I think that's what's happening right now with regards to what's occurring here, but also, law enforcement working with the school districts to see what are the issues and what can be done to address that. Because, it's not the intent of schools to pull resources from the community to the schools, especially in light of, those false alarms that may be occurring, but to temper that between what may actually be occurring or not.
And I think one of the other things you have to look at here, you have this significant increase in calls for service, but we're not receiving additional. There's a few more per week right now, but we also had a pretty healthy week in here where we really dropped down to like 38 or 39 crimes. So, we're not seeing the uptick in the crime rate to correspond with these calls for service. So now it's up to us to try to dissect why this is happening and what we can do to try to bring some of these calls for service down.
Right, yeah, you've recognized that as being your largest concern, being on a trend over 300 from our baseline. So I would think that would be a priority to try to reduce that.
Well, we do have a process in place for the notification. They're tracked at the station. The CSO tracks that, a notification is sent out. And the problems are being dealt with right now at each site and being addressed. So there is a process for us to monitor that throughout the community and a follow-up to that action. Again, some of these things are just exactly what Dr. Vieira pointed to as far as related. Sometimes it's human error, sometimes it's the elements, it could be the age of the system, it just depends. And sometimes it's someone that comes to the school on a time when the alarm's set and they don't have the proper access, and it could be a staff member. But so we're trying to get down to what those issues are so we don't pull those resources out of the community to do that. At the same time, obviously we're going to be, it's what's the intent of the ordinance as it relates to this. Okay, so that, let's try and get in front of the problem first, like you said, and not take the punitive role right out of the gate. Let's try and remedy it first, and then if there's non-compliance after that point, then the ordinance comes to play.
Sure.
Chairman, and just so the commission is aware, during the summer months, we also have some extra deputies available for school security. So it's not always being pulled directly out of the patrol contingent to respond to all these calls. We have this pool of deputies that are off for the summer months, but they're still utilized for school security. So they assist us with this process. So it's not I don't want the public to think that all the deputies are being pulled out of other calls, because we do have quite a few deputies that are still working out there specifically for this kind of calls. So.
Just one last question. On this 501 West Lancaster Boulevard, what is that LASD? I don't recognize the acronym. Oh, Sheriff's Department. Okay. A lot of sheriffs there, I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, what might cause that to happen is if they have a report walk into the front desk that somebody needs to, so they have to call a car in out of the field to come take that report.
Yeah, no, I understand. It was a poor attempt at humor on my part.
Mr. Cobalt, I had one question. I guess it's Murrell's group home. It's at the bottom of the list, but still has 10 calls. One of the concerns I have all the time is not just the number of calls, but if you have a business that it's 50,000 square feet and you've got 100,000 people going through it in a week, I expect there to be an opportunity for more calls than I would at somebody that has 1,000 square feet on Lancaster Boulevard. When I look at it, is the last on the list with only 10, but I wonder how many people are occupants and what kind of problems arise at this group home, because I think I've seen it before. If I look up the next one up, not the next one up, but if I look at who has double that amount, it's the mobile home park that's probably got 150 or 200 spaces times, I don't know, 3 people on average living in one of those. So I just wonder why there's so many more, or on a percentage basis, why the ratio is so high.
We're a little curious about that too, and we're looking into that one pretty closely.
We're going to respond to that.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
That conclude the report.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. We do have one speaker card on item number 1. Mr. Grajeda.
Can you do me a favor? Can you read the name that it says on there?
On which
My speaker card?
name says David G.
Thank you. That's my name. I would like to try to have some kind of anonymity. Anyways, everything is trending up. Assaults, burglaries, larceny, GTA arson. The robberies, I guess, stayed on the even keel. 25 false alarms at Courts Hill. But, what really interests me is like AV Hospital, you have 48. Walmart, you have 25. What types of calls are those, Everything's trending up, but, last night at the city council meeting, they say crime is going down. And if more calls for service are being done, where are we getting all these arrests for that aren't calls for service? If for our arrests, we have one of the highest arrest rates in probably all of LA County. So if the calls for service are now increasing, where are we getting all the arrests from if they're not, nobody's calling? Why do we have such a high amount of arrests and low calls of service? But now it's upswinging. Nobody talks about the quality of life in the Antelope Valley. Now, I understand your statistics and stuff like that. We do need, law enforcement here. Every deputy is an asset to this community, and I don't want to dispute that at all. That's a fact. We do need sheriffs here. Just their overall attitude towards the population needs to change, I feel. I'm dealing with them, but responsible call, quality arrests. I want quality arrests. I know a speaker, I don't know if it was you, but a criminal justice meeting I watched online says he was worried about, the speaker was talking, quality arrests than just a high amount of arrests. And I feel like if the sheriffs spend more time on calls for service instead of going out patrolling and trying to find any reason to get an award at City Hall, then we might actually have some quality arrests. Thank you.
I wanted to make a comment, actually, it has not with the speaker, but I just forgot to mention it because I started asking questions about the statistics. But one of the things I wanted to say is that it's really great to see the crime statistics and the maps online, and I appreciate the hard work you're doing on that. Congratulations. I think the more information that's available to the public, the better, and I think it just gets better and better. It causes a lot more questions, and that's exactly what we want to do, is start raising the questions so that we can find some of the answers. So congratulations on doing that. Great job.
Along those lines, are you tracking the hits or that people access that website, Jim?
I'm not. I think we've got the capability to do it through our vendor, but
Just curious.
yeah, I'd be, I don't know, got a lot going on right now.
Just wondered. Thank you. All right. Arrest statistics, Sergeant Krager.
Morning.
Morning.
Before we hit the arrest statistics, I'm going to address the repeat call locations that Jim's just brought up. The captain asked me to take a look at these. I've examined each of the locations here. Obviously, the 1600 West Avenue J, Antelope Valley Hospital, we get a number of calls there for assaults, that type of thing. Cole Middle School, that's definitely an alarm issue. I've pulled all of those calls. A number of those were false activations by construction workers that were on site there. Quartz Hill High School, an additional alarm issue. The other school down here, Tierra Bonita Elementary School, also an alarm issue. And I think it's important to note that just because it generated a call doesn't mean we actually had to send people out. Some of these were canceled by the alarm company before we sent our resources out there to check the alarm. They made the initial call to the station for the alarm call, and before our units were sent to that location, the alarm company called back and canceled that response, but it still will show up as a repeat call. The 1301 East Avenue I, Friendly Village Mobile Home Park, we're showing 25 hits to that location. What you need to consider for that location is there's probably in excess of 400 mobile homes at that park. I looked at each one of those. There's no specific mobile home that's generating all of these calls. It's all various mobile homes throughout. The same thing will be occurring with the Rancho Mirage Mobile Home Park, where we had 19 calls for service out there, all different mobile homes. 45800 Challenger Way, Briarwood Mobile Home Park, same story there. We've got in excess of 400 mobile homes in that park. 5711, same thing. 10th Street West, Lancaster City Park, we've had a number of vandalism calls and disturbances out there, which we're in the process of addressing through our special teams right now. Kingtree Avenue is one of concern. It is a apartment complex. Of these 11 hits to that location, most are to one apartment with a family disturbance type issue that's been ongoing. The station, obviously self-explanatory. 15th Street West and Avenue J, we show 10 hits to that location. 6 of those are the same incident that were improperly entered repeatedly by one of our dispatchers, and the others are traffic collisions and a pedestrian walking in the street. Gadsden Avenue, the Granada Villa Apartments, again, large apartment complex. No one apartment is generating all these calls at several different locations. And the 823 Pillsbury, the Morels Group Home, the 10 calls to that location are all regarding runaway of one child, one 13-year-old male child who consistently runs away from that location. Our previous meeting, we had another group home that came up as a repeat call location, and that was the location on Hansted, 44423 Hansted Avenue, where we had 17 calls for that location. 14 of those were missings, runaway kids from the group home. So, does anybody have any questions about these locations, and does that answer your questions that we had on these repeat calls? Okay. And now I'll get this switched over and we'll hit the arrest stats real quick.
Chairman? Chairman?
If I may, can I always transition?
Absolutely.
Address the last speaker to provide the community some input. When Jim's talking about crime trends, he's looking at a 12-month from August through July. But I want the community to be aware that year-to-date, all Part 1 category crimes are down with the exception of robbery, which is up 1.8%. Essentially 6 more robberies this year than last year. Otherwise, year-to-date, from January 1st through yesterday, all of the categories are going down. I think that's the difference needs to be addressed.
Good point. Thank you.
Okay, make sure. Okay, we'll take a quick look at our Part 1 activity for July. 100 Part 1 arrests for the month of July, down approximately 15 from June. Looks like the aggravated assaults is where we dropped in that category there. Part 2 arrests, we had a pretty significant drop in our Part 2 arrests, down 188 from June. The big categories that we dropped in there was vehicle and boating laws and warrant arrest. And that can be attributed to we had a number of DUI checkpoints and things that occurred in the month of June, which really elevated those numbers for the month of June that we didn't have in July. So the number dropped slightly. Our comparison by the other stations, we actually dropped below Palmdale, Lakewood, Century, and Compton for Part 1 arrest. And Part 2 arrest, we dropped below, looks like Century, and that was it. So numbers are still pretty consistent where we have been. Okay, the top graph representing our Part 2 arrest year to date. Again, you can see the red bar for the current year. We're actually slightly below where we were the same time last year. We had 134 Part 1 arrests for the month of July, 100 this year. And the lower one, we've got, again, another slight drop for the month of July. Overall, our current year-to-date arrest, 7,321, compared to last year, the same time period, 8,012, down 691 arrests, approximately about an 8.6% decrease from the same time period last year. But that's expected with the crime rate dropping. Those arrests are definitely going to drop a little bit. Does anybody have any questions?
No, just a comment that at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about looking at these repeat calls.
Yes,
and that analysis is outstanding, gives us a better insight into what's going on. So it does sound like you have a handle on something that is becoming a priority. So
Yes, sir. Yes.
Appreciate that.
We get this from Jim, and we take a look at it, pull the numbers up, and see if there is an actual problem there. Most of them, as you can see, were pretty explainable as to why they were occurring. And the ones that aren't, we have a plan in place to address those, and hopefully they won't show up again at the next meeting as repeat call locations.
certainly narrows it down, though, when you look at it that way. So.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant Kroger, I had a question. The calls that come in, like with the group home we talked about.
Yes.
Now, that's certainly a little relief, knowing that a bunch of those with one home are related to runaways as opposed
Yes.
to some kind of altercation or other problem. Do all of those calls represent where a regular radio card to go out, or are some of those handled, like maybe the runaway report, can that be handled by a community service officer? Are any of those that we see on there calls that are taken care of by a community service officer going out and taking them?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yes, and a lot of times if it's just a runaway report within the city limits here, that's what we will dispatch one of the community service officers to go out and take that runaway report. Now, if there's something within the call that suggests that this is a critical type missing where we need more resources, then at that time we'll dispatch a deputy out to the location to assist the CSO. But for the most part, if it's just a runaway, we do utilize the city CSOs to take those type of reports.
And would that also apply to some of the retail environments, the retail settings that we saw there, some of the retail stores? Would some of those calls or any of them be handled by community service officers?
If it's just a report call, and generally if there's no workable type information where we could identify the suspect immediately, we'll handle that with our community service officers. Now, if there's for instance, we see the Walmarts up there frequently. Most of those are a shoplifter that's being detained by security, and at that time we have to dispatch a deputy, or we utilize the Walmart deputy who is in place out there if he's on during that time period to take care of those.
Right. So if it's more just informational gathering when you get there, rather than somebody that's being held and needs to be transported and arrested in a car, the community service officer can handle a lot of those.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Krager. A speaker car to agenda item number 2, David G.
Okay, so robbery is up. Okay, robbery, you're more likely to get robbed now in the community than all these other crimes. These are yearly statistics, right? So we're only basing them on last year's statistics, if I'm right in that assumption. Well, they just arrested less people this year. It's not hard to do, you know. So it's to me, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theory, but it's easy to cook some books. Anyways, calls are important. Okay, people just getting arrested is not important. We have the highest arrest rate. No one's going to dispute me on that. It's a fact. We are the busiest station, you know. I just think that a lot of things can be done better, even when it comes to crime statistics. Maybe looking into the quality of life out here in Lancaster, making it better. Thank you.
Okay, from the California Highway Patrol update, Captain Urea. And again, welcome.
Thank you. Well, first the bad news. Over the last month, we've had 4 fatalities. From last year, from previous month, we didn't have any. Now we just had our last 4. We've had 4 additional. Traffic collisions are unfortunately up as well. On the positive note, our Arrive Alive program for SR-14, we more than exceeded our goals over the past year, and we actually had no fatalities with that grant. That grant enabled us and the Newhall area to put out extra patrols for DUIs and bring our statistics down. And with the we dropped traffic collisions itself in that corridor area 63%, and we had 4 fatalities the year before, and we had no fatalities up to this point. On the 19th of last month, we had a meeting for this grant, and what they're hoping for is to go into phase 2. So we're bringing up letters of support from Assemblyperson Runner's office, and then also from Smith, to have each submitted recommendations for a part 2 to that. So we're real happy with the efforts that were made for that corridor, and we hope to continue that and hope the grant goes through. As far as area business and enforcement coming up details, we have 2 DUI checkpoints coming up, one of them being on the 12th of this month, in a couple days from now, and then the other one on the 26th. Locations will be yet to be announced.
Any questions?
I guess just when you talked about potentially going into a phase 2 with that special enforcement, will there be a different component to it, or when you say phase 2, you just mean an extension of time with those
We're hoping
same?
for an extension of time for that, and to continue. I mean, with the statistics that we've had thus far, we're very pleased with them, and we want to continue them. And we know the enforcement effort and the grant that we were given, it made that happen for us. So we're hoping that they'll agree with that and continue this.
I can tell you it's effective. I met 2 uniform officers the other night that were a part of that. So
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have no update today from the district attorney. He was unable to attend. And on number 5, Commissioner Harris is out of town, so we'll move that report on to our next meeting. So item number 6, Business Watch Subcommittee update. Mr. Drico, do we have?
Yes, I actually have some good news. We have 2 prospective dates for the loss prevention management regional people proposed. They are either August 24th or August 3rd at 10 a.m. if that works. Commissioner schedule. We're going to meet with them in the similar format that we practiced at the other days. They're going to show us what their process is and how they manage their loss prevention and other issues that they're having that they'd like to discuss as far as in their parking lot and some adjacent complexes. So either one of those dates would be fine, so whatever works for your schedule. And then we'll schedule the next one after that, which will probably be more like a month. They're also making such available. There's a real interest on their part.
Okay.
As far as our local businesses, we continue staff meets with the Boulevard Committee and as well as some other business folks in town. We've added 4 more business watch groups. And with the focus on some of our centers here, especially around Avenue J. I'm sorry, I'll turn this on. Avenue J and 20th Street West. So we'll focus on that area next. But I'm glad we're back on the ground on this issue. And so they're going to walk us through their whole process. And then they are also very interested in what other retailers are doing in the area.
Very good. Looking forward to that. And any public safety update?
And on public safety update, we had our National Night Out Public Safety Fair last week at Pierre Bain Park. We had a ton of representation from all the agencies that work within the Antelope Valley and a number of advocacy services and everything as it relates to issues here within the community and services they provide. We had a huge representation from the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, and we also had, like, the Sheriff's motorsports team came out and brought some things out for the kids, the equestrian mounted unit. It was a really neat show, and we put it there on the park with the focus on that park is a community park, and it's something we're going to probably do every year now on National Night Out to have that event there. For things that we're doing this month, we've had a number of neighborhood watch group meetings, some areas where we've done some updates on our website. We're working closely now with Jim putting out this crime mapping information and making it available to our groups and trying to work through the process of teaching everyone how to access that and utilize it. We're looking forward to the school year starting. We've maintained a presence out with some of our traffic resources as well as our parking enforcement folks and everything to hopefully we kick off on a good start on people coming to and leaving schools on their drop-offs and pickups. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Over the next several months, we're putting together with some of the service provider agencies within the area to try and determine where our gaps in services are. So we go and we clean out an area based on our community-based model, but, ultimately we need to maintain a presence and determine what the needs are for that particular area and how to bring those services there and maintain that interest. So that's a continuing process, and to be quite frank, we have a lot of enthusiasm as it's related to that from these agencies that provide those services to make people aware in the community of what does exist for them. So that's where we're at.
Very good. Questions, comments from the commission? All right. Thank you, Mr. Dorico. We do have a couple of speaker cards on item number 7. Lyle Talbot.
Yes. I went to my national night out, and I was treated very badly. I was accosted, I was abused, verbally and senior abuse. I was accused of being drunk. I was harassed. I was threatened with jail time. And it was witnessed by several members of the city staff. I went to raise awareness about the power plant and seeing how it was in the park in East Lancaster. I hope to interest people in Lancaster, in East Lancaster, to worry about off-gassing from the proposed power plant. And I believe that in the next couple of days the state will make their decision on whether or not to issue a permit. But on the other side of the coin, I had this sign here. I don't like to waste space. I'm a conservationist. And I asked the state for Aber to go back to the 24-hour fitness gym, and Rex Paris, are you listening? And I call it Safe Night Out. But I didn't feel very safe when I was accosted by an official of this city. Here I am being browbeat by my public safety officer. I couldn't understand that. I have a right to protest, to demonstrate peacefully, and I was, and I wasn't drunk. When he asked me if I had been drinking, I said, go get your breathalyzer and find out. He didn't do that. So he had a couple of Explorer Scouts chased me around, not shadowed me throughout my stay there, about a 45-minute stay. Well, I actually have an action that I could file with the Sheriff's Department, but I don't want to burden them with anything that's trivial. For them, it's trivial probably. For me, it's not. I'm an octogenarian, and I don't like being treated like that by a youngster or anyone. So I plan to file a complaint with the city. Thank you. But I won't bother you next month because I'll be in Europe. I'm visiting all the D-Day Normandy beaches and Germany, Austria, Holland, whatever. Can I bring you back a menu from Holland, from Amsterdam?
Sure. Have a good trip.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
the speaker said that he had it witnessed by several of the staff members. I understand that Jason Cottle was a witness to this. Can you elaborate on what took place?
Yeah, no problem. I attended the National Night Out as well. At the event, it appeared to me that Mr. Talbot was intoxicated as well. Obviously, it appeared that way to Lee DeRico. I did not see accosting, abusing, harassing, threatening. I saw general concern from our public safety officer in the sheriff's department with intoxicated people at an event that is a family event. What I did see was instantly pointing and poking at Mr. DeRico's chest, and to a point where his patience and restraint was significant, as well as the restraint of the deputies there in that location. So it is insignificant in the sense that Mr. Talbot did stay. He did show a sign. He did participate in the festivities, but I think it's an attempt to extend the 3 minutes of fame, and there is really not an issue here.
Thank you. And we have a second speaker card on item number 7, David G.
Last couple, or it was a month ago now, I believe, came over and I said, you know, the CHPs, you guys are giving people tickets, and you guys came up with a figure of 5 fatalities a year, you know, and so I asked them today whether or not these fatalities were directly caused by speeding, and they say no, DUIs, because, you know, they're mostly related to DUIs. So I feel like, you know, enforcement is due where it needs to be enforced. You know, DUIs are a crime, and, you know, obviously I've had friends who have lost their lives because of driving under the influence. So I'm affected by that. So, you know, I see the need to get these people off the road. Also, I want to say, you know, there's the DUI checkpoints coming up, and now there are lawful DUI checkpoints, and there are unconstitutional sobriety checkpoints, according to Ingersoll versus Palmer, okay, where you only have the right to stop somebody to ask them if they've been drinking, to check for signs of impairment. And if no signs of impairment, you have to let them go on their way without further delay, okay? Not 4 explorers who are not deputized, who are not deputies, shine a light in your face, and then the deputies asking everybody for their IDs and who they are, which is none of their business, okay? Not only that, now there's dogs at these DUI checkpoints, okay? And they say it's a DUI/driver's license checkpoint. There's no such thing as a driver's license checkpoint in the country, okay? It's a big violation of our constitutional rights. And I'm addressing this now because it's important. Because when they can get DUIs off the highway, and I'm sure they do it very efficiently, and we can't get 1 DUI on a sobriety checkpoint, but yet we can take 20 vehicles away from people because they have they have a suspended license or no license at all. You know how easy it is to get a suspended license here in California? You know how restricted it is just to hold your license? It's so hard. So, you know, I would like to see some of these issues addressed, man. This is very serious. Okay, dogs, can those dogs be interpreted as vicious, or are they just well trained? Thank you.
Public business from the floor, non-agendized items.
We request any person who would like to address the Criminal Justice Commission on non-agendized matters to complete a speaker card. You will find speaker cards on the back table of the council chambers. Additionally, we respectfully request that you fill the cards out completely and print as clearly as possible so that if necessary, the commission or city staff will be able to contact you either by phone or mail. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. When you approach the podium, please notice there are three lights. The green light comes on when you begin, the yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds remaining, and the red light will come on when your 3 minutes are up. We ask that you be considerate of the allotted time to allow other speakers to have their 3 minutes as well. State law prohibits the Criminal Justice Commission from taking action on items not on the agenda, and your matter will be referred to staff. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do have 8 speaker cards under non-agendized, and we'll start with Diane Grooms. Thank you. We'll move on. David Paul.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. I think we need to breathe some life back into this room. You know, I've been thinking lately a lot about our country and our future. I remember the great Walter Payton, 10 yards from the end zone, running down the sideline, hit, he spun, he hopped on one leg for 4 or 5 steps. It was the most brilliant feat of athleticism I've ever seen. He still went out of bounds. I don't want our country to go out of bounds. I was watching CNBC today, and this older British gentleman was talking about not only the effect that the European debt has on our financial future, but also the hooligans that are rioting in England. And he had this view that it's partly the prosperity we enjoy that is the blame. Our children are not disciplined. He thinks children need discipline by the time they're 6 or it's all over. I think that it's a little later. Gary Gilmore, before he was executed by our firing squad, told a reporter that he was probably reachable up to the age of 11. But there's certainly this lack of discipline. Now, you're going to get some things back about speed limits. We talked about it at council last night, and I talked about how this gratis is given 10 miles over my 25-mile-an-hour street. When you're going that, it's 40% over. And if I told my children, look, this is the rules, the limit, but I'm not going to bug you till you get 40% over, or the 85th percentile, if 85% of people are breaking the law, then we adjust the speed limit. That doesn't make any sense to me either. That's like having 9 out of 10 kids at a party all doing whatever they're doing and saying, well, go ahead, we all do it. I'm concerned about that. So I think about the importance of traffic enforcement and how it is such a thing. That's why I put together my Human Accountability Project to start with traffic, start with the degradation of law that occurs when people just try and subvert it. It's not important. We try and avoid it. We try and get out of the responsibility. And people just don't have any respect for the law. And I think about these riots, and I've asked for this community preparedness. I've asked that we as a city prepare for what happens, because you need to have some way of knowing. It's like in England, the citizens are coming out, they're protecting their businesses and their homes, and they're not saying the police are bad or we're against them. They're not vigilantes. They're just trying to protect themselves. And so that's what a citizen like me feels he needs the most, some ability to protect himself, some ability for law enforcement to recognize the decent citizens that are not going to stand by and get kicked from the ones that are doing the crime. So thank you for your time. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. John Mencino.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, law enforcement, city staff, thanks for allowing me to speak. I'm not here to bash law enforcement. Rather, I think it takes great courage to be a police officer or a sheriff's deputy in this state of California when you can be shot and killed as a result of a simple traffic stop nowadays. I've been involved in voluntary criminal justice since 1981, and I've researched cases. I've testified on pieces of legislation statewide, national-wise. I've contributed by initiating efforts to improve the parole system where somebody like convicted assassin Sirhan can actually be granted a parole date. Onion Field murder Gregory Powell can be granted a parole date, both of which were taken away as a result of efforts that I launched. I remember in 1963 that the Onion Field murder case of a police officer made national headlines. Today, a police officer is shot on a regular basis, simply trying to protect the public and the population generally. The reason I'm here now is I moved here nearly 5 years ago from Orange County after 28 years in manufacturing management, running small and large manufacturing firms. I've seen a significant drop in the crime rate overall in this city in that nearly 5 years. My concern is something that may not be totally addressed by this commission or law enforcement that's here, or even city staff, and it has to do with recidivism. Somebody brought up rape earlier. I was involved in a study about 12 years ago that reflected that California's recidivism rate on rape was 70%. 70% of the rapes could be stopped by just not letting them out to do it again. Unfortunately, law enforcement is hampered, one hand tied behind its back, when you have a revolving door system of justice at the state level. And I can't tell you how many times I testified before the Public Safety Committee, and prior to that, when it was known as the Assembly Criminal Justice Committee, and watched good pieces of legislation wind up in the trash can because it was controlled by liberals who wanted to make sure that their pockets that were being filled by the defense bar continued. So my concern is, what can we do to help you guys reduce the number of repeat calls? I have clients in my business in this city, as well as Palmdale and Rosemont, and the number of calls has to be dropped. But how can we help you guys at the state level, maybe with legislation? I know what publicity I generated sure created a ruckus at the state level some 20 years ago. What can we do to help reduce the recidivism rate of the calls and yet focus on those spots that are getting the most calls, gang activity and so forth? Thank you.
Thank you. Shannon Thomas.
Good morning. I'm Shannon Thomas. I'm a computer technician for Superior Electronics. My boss let me go for this meeting today, so if you go by Superior Electronics, please tell them I was here. In 2004, I was a victim of a violent crime. Within a couple of years, after the shock wore off, I went back to college. This summer, I have my degree in criminal justice. Next fall, I'm looking for a law school. Back in the spring, our Criminal Justice Club invited Jim Cobalt to speak to us. And he said, why don't you come down, we'll do it in the chambers. So, we made the appointment. We went through it was very complicated with getting everything together. And it was a very cold night, so only 5 of us showed up. But Jim, he spoke for 2 hours, passionately about criminal justice. You know him. And, for the last 4 years, I've been listening to lecturers talk. And he brought back the beginning of the first training of criminal justice all the way to the end. He's brilliant. And wanted to say, because, next month is school starting back again. And I wanted to say, if he comes back, we promise to have, more students show up for a lecture. I wanted to thank the City Council yesterday, but it was my first time coming to one of those meetings, and it was a little spooky. So since we're all criminal justice professional people, I thought I'd feel more comfortable here. So thanks again, and thank you again, Jim, and I apologize for the Criminal Justice Club, but we'd like to get you back again. Thanks.
Thank you, and just point of clarification, schools are back in, the majority anyway around here. So.
Bakersfield, California State University, Bakersfield starts next month.
Okay, next speaker card, Victoria Zavala.
Good afternoon. Some of you may or may not know me. My name is Victoria Zavala. I'm the founder and director of Alternative Healing Collective at Wellness Center. Again, I bring another issue to concern, a medical marijuana evaluation center in the city of Palmdale. This was advertised, I think 3 or 4 days they actually did their grand opening. It's good news and it's bad news. It's good news, okay, great, but where's the safe access? On top of that, I mean, the calls are ridiculous. Delivery collective services are going to flourish. Think about it. The people that are paying $50, $35, that's cheap. They're going to get the wrong idea about these recommendations. Between the ages of 19 and 25, unemployed, uneducated, what are they going to do? Use this paper? Let's be in another alternative healing. That's not what I'm trying to create here. Like I said before, it took a lot of courage to come before all of you and say, look, I'm a medical cannabis patient, and you know what, this is what happened to me in 2007, and I don't want this to happen to another, 30-year-old, 20-year-old woman, father, whoever. Safe access, we have these papers. I tell people it's stupid to stay a stoner, but it's a privilege to be a patient, just like our driver's license. So I ask you here today, and I've told Mayor Paris, and we keep on moving forward, and I know that Melanie Croker was here and calling me the 18th century marijuana woman. That's not what we're about. I'm a patient advocate. I have a disease. It's not going away. Okay, that's the reality. But I don't want to look back later trying to be the pioneer here in Antelope Valley, creating safe access. And my daughter's only 5. I have a vitamin D deficiency. I'm allergic to the sun, and I live in the Antelope Valley. Try dealing with that. Okay, I don't make a lot. But the reality is there's a lot of people out there that are in my condition and a lot worse. And they wish that they could come here and they could speak upon this and say, look, we need safe access. I try to move forward with Palmdale. And I know that both of the cities are susceptible and they're just not sure. But the reality is if we've got this evaluation center, Lancaster has an evaluation center, Kern County's in jeopardy in 30 days, 20,000 people will be in jeopardy with their medicine. Where do you think they're coming to? How many right now do you think patients are in the Antelope Valley in just Palmdale, Lancaster? 10,000 patients. We need help. And the people who are really sick, they need just as much. This isn't easy, but I'm not giving up. But what's left? Who else is going to come in this podium and say, we need safe access the right way? Nobody else is doing it. They make a mockery. Oh, are you selling medicine? It's not a joke. It's not, you guys. I'm just the only strong enough one to come on this podium and do what I do every day. But I tell you, I medicate a lot. I don't know how I would do it. So I need your help. Thank you.
David Aber? Nicole?
Hi. I want to break some type of barrier that we have here, and to the person that I am, because it's so hard now. It's maybe be driving me nuts because I live, work, and play here. Work is business, right? And just to clarify, without asking questions or anything, if the Unite program and AVPH has anything to do with Ms. Groom, then well, that was a proposal that was supposed to include something entirely different, and that was already approved by some super committee. I'm not quite sure, like the framework, but and I just want to know how to break the barriers. I don't really appreciate, because you know what? The HPRP was supposed to be, a bill that was presented by Congress, and basically I think that one may have been proposed by the president exactly, but you know what HPRP was? It's supposed to be legislation for pimps and hoes, so we can get our 20 acres and a mule for everybody. And Ms. Grooms, I had people actually call, and she's like, for her HPRP, I don't approve. I don't not, Ms. Grooms is not, I don't have anything against her, but it's just the way that the program is administered. And she told us, or my people, that we had to be out of a job, and that's the only way that they could help us and everything. But if she's the one that they called her, well, they should have been calling, me and my people, or just call me, I'll hook you up. But if I could just break some type of barrier, because our communities and I don't know, I don't know how, I have all the answers, or some answers, but the right answers say for schools, from public schools to the jail system, that, Mr. Dorico, could you meet with me? Okay.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay. Can he bring it, you'll bring it back? Or no, I'll just leave it up to me and Mr. Dorico's discretion.
Thank you. David G.
Okay, I'm going to say the first line of the Brown Act, which I think is really important. The legislature finds and declares that the public commission, boards, and councils, and other public agency in the state exist to aid the conduct of the people's business. It is the intent of law that their actions be taken openly and that their deliberations be conducted openly. The people of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the agency which served them. That includes you, it includes City Council. I have the right to speak, I have the right to publicly criticize, I have the right to oppose somebody who's going to be appointed to an office, but obviously, to me, because I'm very observant, that they already had it made the decision before they even came up with your recommendation, Mr. Chris. They even had her name tag already that day. And you're recommending her that day, and they had her name tag already made? And I'm talking about Deputy Mayor Seto, who works for the law firm RX Paris owns, who also is a Chinese liaison to private corporations who have vested interest in our community. And now she sits on the board of redevelopment. And redevelopment does commercial property. They own a lot of it. So I'm just addressing that, and they completely violated my First Amendment right. Well, Ron Smith did, and I'm dealing with the sheriffs briefing about me and having sheriffs come to my house asking whether or not I'm a good person, asking my friends where I live. But they were already there because they ran my name, I'm dealing with that. I have a right to privacy in this country. You understand? I served my time. Yes, I am a convicted felon. Okay? I understand what my past is, and I'm sure you do. And you gave the order for them not to take my complaints. Well, I have a complaint. If a sheriff comes to my house asking my friends, crossing the line from professional to personal, well, then I have a complaint to file. And now I can't file a complaint. Now, what if a deputy decides now, oh, hey, well, he can't file complaints here anymore. Well, I'm going to go kick his door in because, probable cause, whatever reason I want. And the difference between a soldier who fights for this country and our rights and a sheriff is that a sheriff can kill you if they feel threatened. A soldier has to take a shot.
He won't do it.
Commissioner comments? Sure.
Could you speak into your microphone, please?
I'm sorry, Lyle. I forgot you were an octogenarian. You did mention that. one of the speaker cards, one of the speakers today, I believe his full name was on the card, and the chairman mentioned that when he started speaking. He wants to be referred to in a different way, in some shortened form. Do we have an obligation to do that? Are we supposed to say who's up speaking or not? This is like, there was Prince, and then there's the artist formerly known as Prince. And the last time it was Mr. Grajeda, and today it's David G. So does it make any difference to us? Or?
Just point of clarification, what he did put on the speaker card was David G., but out of respect, knowing him from the last minute, I said the full name, so no disrespect intended.
And the last meeting was David G. as well, and just thank you. And let me say, you can read that statement you give prior, every time prior to us coming to speak. Okay, it's request. It's what is that one line that says, we respectfully request that you fill out correctly? I don't have to. I don't even have to put my real name. And the reason why I put David G., and I always put David G., I've done it in the past, put my last name, okay, before, but not here, and not in other meetings, okay, because I had these sheriffs come to my house. I have sheriffs saying, we know who you are. And then I asked the captain over here, how do they know who I am? Are they being briefed? He said, I don't know how they know who you are. I don't know how they know how, And then come to find out, after I filed this complaint, I sit down with the Lieutenant Ed Rothstein, Justin Holmes, and Jared Fletcher, the deputies that came forth saying, they came to my house saying, well, we've been briefed on you. We've been briefed on you. We wanted to know where you live, what you're doing, so we can keep an eye on you. You're a threat to us. Okay, am I a threat to you? I don't have a gun, okay? I don't have a dog. I have a family. I have a daughter, okay? She now lives with me. This is serious to me, okay? I don't get how you guys can get off and say that I'm actually worried, because
When you're at the podium, you're addressing the commission.
I'm addressing the commission. I'm addressing him. He's the captain of the sheriff's station. I'm addressing everybody, every public servant.
Mr. Chairman, his time's up. David?
Exactly. This is a serious issue, okay? Okay. And now we're delivering. This is what I have to deal with. And the lieutenant says, oh, the deputies did nothing wrong.
David, your 3 minutes is
Want to know where you live? We want to see what you're doing?
Thank you.
They've been briefed? You gave the orders?
Sure, I have a card in for non-agendized.
So is there an obligation to give the name, and is there an obligation on our part if they have a nickname or they want to go by initials or anything else? I just want to know, this is the first time it's come up.
Right. There are certain restrictions as it relates to the Brown Act and what information you can get and what requirements are of the public. I'm not, at this point, ready to answer those questions officially for you, but I can research it. Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Talbot, just what you have on your speaker card, both of them were public safety. But if you would like to get 3 minutes, go ahead.
I have to rise to defend myself about this issue of alcohol. Mr. Jason's Caudle, he saw it through his jaundiced eyes what happened. And he was so close to me, his breath was blowing back on me, and he might have been smelling his own. But I had to put my finger in his gut to keep him that distance. And he accused me of having my hands on him. I was only trying to defend my territory. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions, comments, statements from the commissioners? Hearing none, this meeting stands adjourned at 11:35. Thank you very much.